Good evening and welcome to Reality Checks, where we are going to turn our attention today to Jammu and Kashmir. Now, there was repolling or by-polling taking place in many areas which actually did see violence when the main election took place in Srinagar. The net outcome today was mixed news, as the election commissioner himself had to say, because there was no violence today, and that's the good news. It was peaceful polling everywhere. But the bad news was that there was only 2% voting, which we were told was perhaps the lowest ever in the history of Kashmir. So it's clear that the situation in Jammu and Kashmir has been deteriorating for a while and continues to slide. We've been seeing cases of people throwing stones, attacking the security forces, even in the middle of operations, something you didn't see earlier. You've seen these videos which are from Sunday, and I'm going to play it for you because this was a video which was particularly disturbing. You're seeing shots of CRPF Jawans walking back during the polling, being attacked, being heckled, being beaten up, kicked in one case. Those are shocking images. And then, of course, you have images of civilians who were killed same day in another area. Now, it's a bad situation, looking ugly, not completely clear how we're going to find a way out of it. But we've got a bunch of experts together who are going to tell us what exactly these elections have meant today, the fact that there was such a low voter turnaround, and what can actually specifically be done to try and pull Jammu and Kashmir out of the slide that we've been seeing. But before I come to any of you, I just want to welcome a very special guest on the show. Umar Abdullah, former Chief Minister to Jammu and Kashmir, was dealing with this entire situation a short while back, has been very forthright with what he thinks the problem is. Umar, before I start the debate, your take on the situation right now, because the situation does seem to be deteriorating, and deteriorating rather fast.
Well, I think the inability of the central government and to admit the political nature of the problem in Jammu and Kashmir, and the inability of the state government to get Government of India to listen is, I think, what has brought us to this point. The fact that the 2016 agitation ended the way it did, the fact that the fact that there has been no effort to engage the state of Jammu and Kashmir in any sort of a dialogue. You have sort of very well-structured sound bites being delivered, like the youth have a choice between terrorism and tourism and stuff like that. I mean, this all sounds very good on the news or on Twitter, but it doesn't actually sort of address the issue, which is one of alienation, which is one of anger, which is one of disillusionment, and I think that's perhaps the primary reason why we are where we are today.
Umar, you and others in a national conference, many in Kashmir, have been talking about it so many years now. We need to have a dialogue, we need to have a solution. You were speaking about autonomy at some point. But I have to say that, in a sense, positions are hardening elsewhere as well. I think the receptiveness in other parts of the country to saying, okay, there should be a dialogue, we should sit down, there should be some sort of autonomy from Kashmir, solutions around that time. A lot of anger in other parts of the country also over things like this video that we've been seeing of that CRPF Jawan, being attacked. That means that this is right now a less fertile ground for the sort of a give and take discussions and dialogues that could lead to some sort of a compromise solution. So,
I mean, I understand the anger at CRPF, the videos of the CRPF Jawans being attacked. Now, none of those CRPF Jawans were injured. It was, I mean, regrettable what they had to go through, and their restraint was quite admirable. But please also understand that the day that video was shot, where the Jawans were being heckled and all the rest of it by the crowd, was the same day that 8 people were shot dead by those very same security forces. So if you can understand the anger that is brewing in the rest of the country at the video of those Jawans being treated the way they were, can you multiply that anger and imagine how people in Kashmir must be feeling at the images of 8 people lying dead, and their funerals, and their families weeping over those dead bodies.
But Umar,
so I mean, anger, yes.
But Umar, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think the point I'm trying to say is that there is a difference, though, between what sometimes happened in 2010 and what's happening right now. 2010, some of those shooting incidents that created such a stir, Tufail Matu, others, were innocent young people walking on the streets, heading back from school, caught in a crossfire and shot. A lot of what's been happening in recent times, the people who've got shot, are people attacking the security forces. There are encounters taking place. People are attacking the security forces, trying to help the terrorists to get away. Then in a situation like that, if they get shot, it's slightly different to an innocent young person being shot while walking home from school. So there is that difference.
Is your information, is your information based on any inquiry? Has any effort been made to ascertain what exactly happened in 2016, 2017, how it actually differs on the ground with what happened in 2010, or is this just your perception based on how you read the situation? Because I haven't seen any inquiry that has sort of categorically established what you're seeking to lay down here, that the 2010 deaths were largely innocent people and the 2016 deaths were all people who were going to...
No, hang on. I'm not making any of the sort of broad brush generalizations that you're referring to. All I am saying is that you are seeing new trends that are emerging. For example, crowds of young people attacking the security forces during an encounter. That's not something you used to see 20 years ago, 10 years ago, perhaps even not 5 years ago. So yes, there are new trends that are emerging out there which have to be kept in mind.
Sure, I agree. There are new facets to this problem, but that still doesn't take away from the first point I made, which is that, look, in order to get at a solution to this problem, we need to start talking to people. Just wishing this problem away or believing that threatening sound bites from the army chief or stark choices being offered by the Prime Minister is going to solve this problem. Neither have. You had very glib announcements in the aftermath of demonetization that demonetization would put an end to terrorism and stone pelting. It has done no such thing. See, the problem is when you look at a complex problem as Jammu and Kashmir is and try and simplify it by looking at it as purely a black or white issue.
Well, Omar Abdullah, thanks so much for joining us. Let me just get everyone else into this. So, Ed Bukhari, if I could just turn to you, which is the way you would look at the situation? Take today, for example, 2% voter turnout, no further incidents, but that's good. But there is a slide and there is deterioration, and you must be concerned.
Yes, of course. I would say that any person belonging to the mainstream political space, or for that matter, any Kashmiri at large, would be deeply concerned and saddened by the developments as they have happened. I mean, 7% polling in these two phases for Srinagar polls, and more so only 2% today, is a worrying trend for all of us, because what this suggests is that people have actually lost faith in the mainstream political setup. And I think rather than raising fingers at each other, it would serve all of us good to do some introspection, figure out as to why have we reached a situation like this, because we also need to understand that the boycott calls from the separatist camp asking people not to come out and vote have been coming since eternity, but people earlier did defy these calls.
And you've just touched on a really important point, because it's not that the separatists haven't called for boycotts earlier. I mean, I remember coming to Kashmir, covering elections, 96 other times, much more violence, much more threat of the gun. But there was voting. I mean, you didn't have zero voting, very little voting in places like rural Srinagar, Charare Sharif, Badgam. These places did used to see voting, especially in the rural areas. So obviously there's something else then. The fear of the gun is no longer what it was in the early 1990s.
Well, basically, Vikram, what I was referring to is that we also need to understand this, that there may be an element of pressure coming because of the militancy, because of the separatist, calls also. But by and large, we've had such things exist earlier, but still had far healthier voter turnout. So we'll have to figure out for ourselves as to what went wrong. So if you were to ask me as an individual, not only representing the organization that I do today, but also as an ordinary Kashmiri, I would tell you that the mainstream has not delivered much over a period of time when it comes to their promises to the people, whether it be about the political engagement and resolving their issues.
Seeing as you're in power right now, you need to say, but seeing as you're in power right now, immediately you need to take a share of the blame, because the situation has deteriorated since you came in power. Now you could say it's for other reasons, but since you came to power, the situation has deteriorated. It wasn't this bad 3 years ago.
Vikram, this is not the worst situation that we are going through. We've had, as you yourself mentioned, you've been reporting Jammu and Kashmir for a while now.
But yeah, the early 1990s it was worse.
Even years like 2010.
Okay.
So what we need to understand is that if it were about the PDP, or for that matter PDP, BJP combined, we should still have had at least 20-25% voters coming out and voting against us. They should have voted for National Conference. Did they? No. So it is not supposed to be something that's against us. It's against the mainstream at large.
Okay.
And definitely not a great news for all of us.
Okay, Lieutenant General, just while let me get you in, looking at it also from the point of view of the security situation, and I know you and others have been very upset and exercised about some of the images that we are seeing in recent times, because there is perhaps one difference from the early 1990s that we were referring to. I've never seen a situation like this where there's an encounter taking place and people are coming out there and attacking the security forces while they're trying to get at terrorists. You rarely would see pictures of people coming and abusing and kicking and slapping an armed CRPF Jawan, by the way. The restraint which these people, and I'm showing those pictures right now while I'm speaking, in these cases, that man had a gun, he had a rifle. He displayed restraint by not taking it out. But the fact that young people felt emboldened enough to come out and attack him and abuse him was both shocking and somewhat surprising.
First of all, I want to ask a question. Does my soldier lose his right of human right when he wears the uniform? Wasn't this a clear-cut case of human right violation? 2, now where are the human rights activists? Why aren't they voicing? 2, restraint. Now it's a very emotive word. Exercising control is one, and forced repression is another form of restraint, which was in this case. Restraint is, if someone is holding a gun in front of you, he's not pointing, you don't shoot him. You tell him, kindly put down your gun. The moment he raises his gun, he will be shot. Now restraint, he exercised restraint. But the level at which he switches on from restraint to action, in this case, I think it's extremely sad that the civilians over there, they were physically manhandling this gentleman. He is in uniform, in the line of duty. As a matter of fact, I don't know, I'm surprised as to how the section commander, the platoon commander did not protect this man. No physical contact should ensue. This man, if you say that he's exercised good restraint, I think it's a wrong way because it sets precedents.
Okay.
2, what we are talking about alienation, my take on that is more than alienation, it's coercion which has set in. The intensity of Pakistan's proxy has increased and coercion is being done. That is the reason there is a difference.
Junaid Mattu, fine sir, I heard you. Junaid Mattu, let me just get you in on that point before I turn to Sushil. Omar was saying, yes, on the same day as those pictures came of that CRPF Jawan, 8 people were injured. But you're also hearing, both from the general and elsewhere, some of the other trends that are happening of policemen, for example, facing threats, which is started to happen right now. The fact that security forces are being attacked in a manner by unarmed crowds, which is fairly unprecedented. So these are also new aspects of the problem that need to be dealt with.
Well, Vikram, there are many aspects. To start with all due respect to the general, our problem, one of the problems is that we are seeking a political view from a person who rightly has been ingrained to treat Kashmir as a problem of terrorism, a problem of law and order, which it is not. You know, look at the imbalance in this whole thing. We have talked more about a CRPF Jawan wrongly being manhandled than we have talked about 8 people being killed. In some cases without the presence of aerial firing. We've shot these kids directly in the head and neck. Go back to what happened in Chadura. There was an encounter where one militant was holed up, and you know, we went out with RPGs, IEDs and the whole 9 yards. And we eventually, our security forces ran and chased a mob and shot at them, at their backs, at their heads and their necks, and killed 3 civilians. And
Junaid, hang on, they were throwing stones.
No, that's wrong.
I'm not saying it is correct to shoot. No. I'm not saying it's correct to shoot any civilian, but
no, Vikram, let me finish. Let me finish. We have video proof.
If you're interfering in the middle of a security force operation, if you are throwing stones at the security forces when
Vikram,
they are trying to get a terrorist, anywhere in the world, if it happened in Iraq, civilians would be shot. Happened in Syria, civilians would be shot.
No, Vikram, let me finish. God have mercy on us if we are saying Kashmir has turned into Iraq. The first bigger question is, why are these young men coming to encounter sites? The second question is, we shot at them when they were running away from the encounter sites. We didn't shoot at their legs, we shot at them to kill them. And that is the problem. One of the boys killed in Chadura was half a kilometer away from the encounter site, sitting on the other side of the of the embankment. How was he hurling a stone? Is a stone hurled half a kilometer? So the problem is that whenever a civilian dies in Kashmir, we somehow presume that he deserved to die and he was a stone pelter. And that is the problem.
No, actually, that's not quite certain what I'm saying. Because I'm saying that you have to distinguish between the two situations. There have been lots of times when it's a completely innocent civilian walking home from school, that person getting shot or getting injured, slightly different to somebody being injured while they are attacking the security forces. There has to be a difference between them. General Jaswal, before I come back and I get Sushil into it, just wanted to get your reaction to what Junaid was saying about excessive force still being used, people being shot in the back, as he said, while they were running away, or in the head or the leg. Is there a way of using non-lethal weaponry, non-lethal force? Pellet guns didn't work very well. So in all of these cases, security forces can do their work without necessarily lethal force or people being killed. And yet, as you rightly put it, the human rights of the security forces also being respected, so they don't have to be beaten up.
I'll tell you, the safety, honor of your country comes first, always and every time. The safety, honor and comfort of your men comes second. Your personal safety, comfort comes last, always. You have to protect your men from getting killed. The 3 people who were killed
of these lectures on nationalism.
The 3 people who were killed because of stone throwers.
For God's sake.
You see, we were engaging and the stone throwers came in, and because of them, these CRPF men got exposed. They got killed. Now, as far as the non-lethal weapon is
concerned, General Jaiswal, were you there?
Now, pellet
General
gun,
Jaiswal, were you there?
Gun.
Did you receive a briefing about what actually happened?
Lethal,
General Jaiswal, were you there?
And non-lethal.
General Jaiswal, were you there, sir?
Were you there, please allow me to finish.
Did you receive a briefing, sir? Did you receive a briefing?
Kindly allow me to finish.
Did you receive a briefing, or are you speculating? I'm asking you a question, sir. 8 people have died, and your response is that by default, I know that all of them deserved to die. Were you there, sir? Do you know for certain that their human rights were not violated? Do you know for certain there was no excessive use of force?
No, I'll have to then overtop, you know.
All right, Junaid, let him respond. Junaid, let him respond, please.
What is excessive? No, let me. Junaid, kindly allow me, please. Now, when you're quoting this guy who got shot at 1 kilometer away, I would like to see any army man shooting with his insas a man at 1 kilometer away. It is a crossfire incident. And how do you know it is not a terrorist bullet? How do you know that? Just
there was no because there was no terrorist firing. He had a pistol.
Okay. All right, Junaid, I'm going to have to pause this for a minute.
Issued by the security forces.
All right, Junaid, hang on a minute. Let's not get into trying an incident that has already happened. Yeah, sir, can I just get Sushil Pandit in on this? Sushil, quite often you hear that the various...
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Mr. Janardhan, so Sheikh, where do you see this thing proceeding? Because there are other aspects of this. Of course, what the pundits have gone through, another entire aspect of this, which is not discussed sometimes all the time when you're having a look at. Where do you see this thing headed? And how bad is the situation?
I think it has never been worse. Today, Kashmir is in a terrible state, primarily because, as very candidly admitted by Mr. Bukhari, the political process and the mainstream politicians have failed the voters. If you have a problem with a party, you can vote against it, as he himself says. Or if you have problem with the process, you can sit at home and boycott. But if you step out on streets and riot, then this is a much bigger problem, which means you've not only lost faith in your government, you've not only lost faith in the opponents of the government who are an alternative, you've not only lost faith in the system that chooses governments, you have actually lost faith in people who are administering it, who are against an entire system, a set of values, the constitution, everything. And I'm not saying
that may well be the truth, by the way. So then what happens? Then where do you go from there?
But here, the entire process and system has been held hostage to by a set of violent people who are very liberally called civilians and people. Anywhere else in the country, they would be called rioters, murderous mobs, thugs. But we are extremely charitable when we say, how do you know? Were you there? They were civilians.
The point is, yes and no. I mean, you do have violent mobs in other parts of the country too.
Absolutely, yes.
They're not always handled with pellet guns and bullets.
No.
You've seen it in Haryana. You see it elsewhere.
People died in Haryana.
Mr. Bukhari, I'm just coming to you to give you the final word. Mr. Bukhari, I promise I'm just coming to you.
People died in police firing in Haryana also. And we know how polling booths were ransacked, machines were destroyed, things were set fire to, security forces ended up injured. Okay. It is not somebody sipping tea, watching from the window as normally is the alibi, and a bullet came looking for him.
Suhail Bukhari, I started by saying we are certainly not going to get an answer to the Kashmir issue on a television studio or on a debate like this. It is far more nuanced and far more complicated. Just wanted to ask you, when you're talking to your partner in the BJP, because one of the things we sometimes hear coming out of the Kashmir Valley is that part of the reason of the anger is they were voting for you, the PDP, to keep the BJP out. You came in, you did an alliance with the BJP, and therefore they're holding you responsible for that.
Well, Vikram, 3 quick points that I want to make. One, glad to see what Mr. Pandit had to say about the concurrence of ideas of his and mine to a limited extent, that there is a problem of trust vis-a-vis the mainstream politics and the public at large. But then he switched the gears. Rather than trying to figure out where this distrust comes from, which would have led him to Delhi and the perpetual mode of denial historically. Delhi has promised something, and at the end of the day, because you have discredited the mainstream political parties and the players in the state.
I was quoting you.
I was
quoting you.
Second part.
Said so.
No, then you went onto the other side.
Yes.
I did say so.
Yes.
But you,
then why are you in alliance with the BJP?
But you did not go to the roots of it, which is the perpetual denial. We allied with BJP on the basis of an agreement that these issues would be tackled,
and that has clearly failed.
Earlier versions of alliances. Listen, Vikram.
Yeah. Suhail, so on a day,
so the other important aspect that I wanted to touch about
it. Over on the show. I don't want to ask you, on a day like today, after the week that we've seen, on a day like today, 2% voter turnout, what is the message you will give to the central government right now? You are allied with them in the state. What is the message you'll give to the central government? What is it that you want to see done next? What is it that you're planning to do? You're in power.
Well,
what are you planning to do?
The message is not that it has to go from us. It has gone from the people at large. It has to go to Delhi once for all, and everybody, not only the current dispensation, but everybody, that the promises of the political engagement, the processes which were initiated or promises and never delivered on over the years, irrespective of which government was in power in Srinagar or in Jammu, that attitude has to be given up. We have to politically engage, and for us, the best possible way to move forward from here on is to implement agenda of alliance in letter and spirit.
Okay, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there for the moment. Frankly, the arguments between the PDP and the National Conference almost don't matter when it's really about a 2% vote that they are arguing over. And that really is something that Omar Abdullah was referring to earlier. That's where you're down to, fighting for 2% or 7% of the vote. That's not really the way to go. I think a lot of thought is going to have to go into this. Yes, there is talk about having tougher security force action, and why is it that somebody CRPF Jawan was attacked in that manner? What is going to happen to innocent civilians? That aspect of it. Is there going to be a political solution? A lot of thought has to go into this, and I think a lot more attention as well in solving the situation and finding the answers before there is any further deterioration. You're watching The Reality Check. We'll be back again tomorrow.